Hey, tolerators. This is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie Katona, the show where my guest and I chat about the ways misogyny sets up systems to where we don't trust what is happening in our bodies or minds. Today's guest is so multifaceted and talented. Brienne Davis is an actor, producer, hosts the podcast Secret Life, and just released her first book, Secret Life of a Hollywood Sex and Love Addict. She is here to talk about her experiences with secrets and being a love addict within the acting world. Brienne, my sister and I loved prom night. That's like my first geek out moment with you.
Oh my God, I love it. I love Chrissy Lynn. She was the best.
Oh my gosh. And so I believe that was one of the scary movies we went for my sister's birthday. And the entire time we were looking at the murderer and we were like, because you know how he's in shadow the entire time? We're like, why do we know that jawline? Who is that? And then it was like Jimmy from That Thing You Do. And I remember
Jonathan Check.
I was like screaming it at we were probably by ourselves. I was screaming it at the screen. I was like, That Thing You Do. That's who it is.
No, him and I have worked together like 4 or 5 times. We literally have been in so many movies together. The other day we were just talking about that because he's a friend and he also is in recovery and we were just saying, oh my God, we've worked together so much. It's insane. But yes, that I love prom night and he was so funny in it. He's like the nicest guy and he's the killer.
I'm so glad that he's the nicest guy because he's also like the jerk in That Thing You Do. So you don't want to be typecast.
I remember that line too, because I remember those lines like, I shame on me for kissing you with my eyes shut so tightly or something like that. And I was like, that's a good line. Because it's true. People kiss people with their eyes shut too much where they block out all those red flags, right?
Oh my God.
Like he's an asshole.
Well, and that really aligns with what we're talking about today because one of the things that I was going to share with you is sometimes I fall into this trap where I've gone without romantic affection so long that the moment that I have it, it's like I'm touch starved and I'm like, oh, you can treat me however you want. You can be whatever type of person you are, but like, please rub my back that way some more.
Yeah, we get depleted. You know, as humans, we need connection, whether you believe it or not. I used to be one of those people who are like, I don't need anybody. I'm good by myself. I can take care of myself. And if I want sex, I'll just, use my sexuality to get that connection, but it would be false. But when we're depleted from a connection from another human being physically, we then go into starvation. And when you finally get it, you will accept crumbs. You will accept someone that isn't really available because you depleted yourself so much.
Yeah.
So I get it.
During COVID, Grey's Anatomy did an episode where they went into like the touch starvation that people were experiencing. And I was like, oh, now I have a term for that. Thanks, Shonda.
Thanks, Shonda Rhimes.
Because it really made me recall back a relationship I had entered during the like quarantine where it was like, he wasn't good in bed. He wasn't funny. He wasn't fun to be around. But my whole body would just react to getting to sit closely to someone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I even did that. I remember, when my sex and love addiction was like at the worst, I remember my dark night of the soul moment when I was like, I don't even like this person as a friend. Like, you are horrible to waiters. What is wrong with me? Why am I getting this chemical attraction or attachment to you when I don't even actually like you and I don't want to be friends with you? And it's so frustrating that can happen, but it's like we have to do that inner work so we don't attach ourselves to those unavailable people. But when you're going through a pandemic and no one tells you how to deal with not being touched for 2 years, I can see, the shit hitting the fan and you being like, I don't know. Give me anything. Give me anything.
And then I don't know if you ever watched the great TV series, My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, but when she sang that song, like Love Kernels, I was like, oh, I do that, where it's like, I'll just accept like unpopped pieces of popcorn to like gnaw on and be like, this is affection. Everything's great.
Yeah, we have that in we call it crumbs, like getting crumbs. That's what's in the Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous book is like you accept crumbs. Stop accepting crumbs from people in your life. So that was our term.
Yeah. And I think that is such a great thing to launch into because I don't even think it's just romantically, we are almost conditioned to accept crumbs. Like, we all still carry into this, like, into adulthood, this kindergarten mindset where it's like, well, if they were nice once, they're your friend and they just get to be your friend no matter what because sharing is caring or something.
I love that because I'm dealing with my son right now. He's in pre-K, right? And going into kindergarten, and there's this girl in his class, and he's like, she's mean to me. And then she's like, but I like her. And like, not in a love sense. And probably my grandmas would be like, oh, they like each other. Are they boyfriend and girlfriend? I'm like, stop saying that to him. There's nothing sexual about this, but there is something that happens in that grade where it's like, you don't have to be friends with her. I literally said to my son, you don't have to play with her. Like, if she's mean to you, you don't have to accept a friendship with her just because you're in the school and in the class with her. I was literally teaching him just this the other day and saying, we don't accept people that are mean to us and give us crumbs or are nice and then mean and then nice and then mean. I was teaching my 4-year-old that.
Yeah.
Just the other day.
Well, and we also don't accept, well, we don't, on the other side, we don't teach the little girl or little boy who is being mean that, like, when you are mean, people won't be your friend, and that's okay on their part too.
I say that to him. Yeah. I say that to him. I say, when you are mean to people, they are not going to like you. But I also then say to him, if you're not invited to the party or people don't want to play with you, that's okay too.
Yeah.
You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But that wasn't taught to me. That I'm sure you too, our generation is like, you need to be friends and nice to everybody and blah, blah, blah. And I'm from the South. So it's like, you want everybody to love you. And it's like, it's exhausting. And then you're going for unavailable people. And that's what I just did. And then going into fantasy about what you want them to be. If you come from a depleted home, like my father with my mother that weren't available, then you're even striving more for the unavailable and you become unavailable. So it's this cycle we're just having to break with society and the roles of the genders on top of it. It's just like a hot mess. We as humans are a hot mess.
It's ridiculous. Now I'm into your son's pre-K. I read one article about how we shouldn't force children to share anymore. Like if a kid sets something aside, goes to the restroom and comes back and wants that still to be set aside or wants to have like an alone moment with their super special activity or something, that should be more normalized than the like icky way that we go, well, no, if you're going to play with that just out in the open, everyone should get to play with you about that. And then, of course, because I do this with everything, I was like, yeah, that's why we're so fucked up about consent. Because we're told that it's nice to share. And if you don't share, you're mean. And then that wrote a code in my brain that was like, if he wants to touch my boob, he should be allowed to. Sharing is caring. And they're just out here.
They're just out.
They're just out.
Okay. Well, I think there's a good point and a bad point to that. I agree. Like, you do not have to play. You do not, if you're doing something and another kid wants to play with it, no, you do not have to share. That is 100%. But I do believe if you walk away and say, I'm done, and then the other kid comes and plays with it, and then you change your mind, that's where you have to be like, no, you were done. Now go do something else. So I definitely think like, you do not have to play. You do not have to get along with everybody. You do not, have to be nice if someone's being nice to you. My husband hates that I say that, but I'm like, if she's mean to him, he does not have to keep being nice to her. I keep telling him, just ignore her. Go the other way. And he's like, Brienne, you can't say that. He's going to get in trouble in school. I'm like, I don't care. I don't want my kid to be striving for someone that's mean to him, for him to still be nice to them. That is not okay. He doesn't get to be mean to them. He just doesn't have to give them any mind and attention.
Well, and killing with kindness can only get so far, because then it's like that person knows that you're just going to combat them with kindness. And there are people who are wired differently or have different like approaches to things who will take advantage of that. And then they find the killing with kindness people.
Yeah. And I just I even told him, my son, my 4-year-old, I don't want him to reach outside of himself for anything to make him feel better. So it's like, I allow him to have his feelings. I allow him to be upset. I allow him to be angry. Yes, he cannot be mean to me. He has to watch his words, but he can have his emotions and feelings, and he can be upset if someone doesn't like him, but he cannot reach outside of himself to make himself feel better.
Exactly.
And that's my goal. That's what took me, oh God, so many years to let go of, like reaching outside of yourself, people, places, and things to feel like a whole person.
Yeah. Okay. Educate me a little bit about love addiction. So I am in recovery for codependency. The way that the way that I understand it is that I was conditioned to be codependent. It was a nurture. It was not a nature. Is love addiction something that we are also nurtured into, or is it a chemical imbalance?
Well, the addictive part is a chemical imbalance. So when I looked back at my family tree and was like, why am I addicted to love and sex? First of all, I have never had a one-night stand, not many sexual partners, did go into fantasy a lot, watched things way too young, didn't have parents that gave proper love, meshing, codependency, then pull it away, love, anorexia, all that stuff. But when I looked back, addiction ran in my family. So it was like great-great-grandfather was an alcoholic. Then each generation was like a workaholic, an overeater, a codependent, sex and love addict. You know, it went that way. So, but the love addiction is definitely like nature, right? So when you grow up into a household that doesn't teach you how to love properly, doesn't have like that supportive underneath layer of stability, then you start looking for other ways to give yourself that love and affection. And it's going into fantasy. It's seen TV and movies way too early. You know, the fairy tales. I hate Disney fairy tales with so much, like Venom. I hate them.
Yeah.
Like Sleeping Beauty should not be getting kissed while she's asleep. First of all, that's sexual assault. She did not say, please kiss me. You know what I mean? Like, she's asleep. So like those kind of things, it's like society conditioned, looking for love, soulmate, wedding day as a young girl, you know, that whole fantasy thing. So I definitely think it's both sides. It's a chemical imbalance and a depletion in the family, and a society thing amplifies it, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense, because we do talk a lot about how, well, the whole podcast is framed around how our culture set up these systems, misogyny, the patriarchal system that we all live in, and then our culture formed around that. And then I remember watching things when I was a kid and going like, oh, that's how that's supposed to go. It's supposed to be like highs, lows. My first relationship, that's exactly how it was. We were either rocking and rolling and we were like high on adrenaline, or one of us was screaming and we were just depleting the other one.
Yeah. And it's looked at as passionate. You're passionate, and then you passionately make up. And it's like, no, you should not be fighting and arguing and then in bliss 2 seconds later. Like, let's show some stable, consistent relationships that talk about managing money, talk about intimacy and their sexuality, talk about being there. Two separate people that are not enmeshing. There is no soulmate situation where someone's out there in the world that's going to complete you and give you your self-worth. Society has put so much negative, love addictive tendencies that I believe, just from my work the last 13 years, is like 90% of society are love addicts, like through and through. I could say, like, they go for the unavailable, the toxic, soulmates, then you get it, and then you realize you don't even know how to sustain it because it's unrealistic. So I 100% agree that the patriotic misogyny, what women have to be like, what men have to be like, what relationships look like, is all just messed up. Like, we're all just messed up.
And what we don't talk about is when we talk about addiction, and we've touched a little bit about it in this show. It's like, well, it's either alcohol or it's drugs, and that's what you're addicted to. And it's something outside of you that you like accidentally huffed one day and then your body couldn't deal with it anymore. But what we don't talk about is all of the ways that we're conditioned to be acceptable ways to be addicted to things, like shopping. If you're addicted to shopping, then the economy is like, thank goodness for you, you're a hero.
Yeah, and post about the shopping things and all your bags laid out where it's like, why do you need all that shit? Like it's going in the what is it? The waste soon and next season. And it's shopping, even eating or over exercising or like, working out so much, or gambling is a big one, going to have as many credit cards, overspending what you make. Like there's so many addictions that our society says is a good thing. Over sexualizing yourself, the swipe left, swipe right mentality of dating right now, that is just next level addictive behavior. And then that love, looking for that unrealistic fantasy of what love looks like and putting a shiny picture of it on your Instagram and saying, here's my love life, when it's like a piece. Literally, I had a client the other day post this photo that looked like, and I don't follow any of my clients on Instagram, but she sent it to me, and there was this beautiful photo of her boyfriend and her and in this beautiful location. I'm not going to give any details. And she was calling me right after she posted the photo of how horrible their relationship was. And in my mind, I'm like, this is everything that is wrong with society.
Yeah.
Because if she could put on like, this just happened, I feel horrible, I don't need to be with this person, it's toxic, blah, blah, blah. But instead it's this glossy picture that then somebody else sees and goes, oh, I have to have a relationship like that.
Hi, everyone. This is Natalie, and I wanted to take a moment to shout out one of our fellow podcasts. I have been enjoying PNW Haunts and Homicides with Caitlin and Cassie. They chat all about true crime, the paranormal, and all other kinds of spooky stuff I love, specifically for the Pacific Northwest. I love the community aspect of the show, that it happens right around where they're living. And Cassie and Caitlin do a really great job of telling these stories with a little bit of humor, like your best friends would tell you a story, but with the utmost respect for the people who experienced or were victims of this story. So enjoy this clip from their episode 82, and then make sure to go check them out once you're done listening to this episode. There are links in the show notes.
During the day, this park is bustling with all of the park-type people, joggers, stroller pushers, dog walkers, picnickers, frisbee throwers, the type.
Ew, joggers.
Ew, what are they doing?
Well,
I'm more in line with the picnickers.
Yeah.
Some wine and cheese.
I'm just fresh off research about a jogger, so.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
There's also plenty of housing around this park, so it's not secluded by any means.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
I mean, just for a place that's haunted.
I think it's just like a neighborhood park.
Okay.
But at night, things shift from a lively atmosphere to a deadly one.
Oh, I don't like it.
Legend has it that one night, a woman was walking through the park at midnight. Now, I know what you're thinking. No, it's not Cinderella. This woman had both of her shoes and clearly no fairy godmother there to protect her.
Okay, well, that was not at all where my head went. Okay.
So she comes across another woman walking in the park. As the first woman scanned the other from top to bottom, as you do, she noticed she was wearing a white dress. Probably a pretty odd choice of outfit for a nighttime stroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But as she continued her gaze down, she realized something even more strange. The woman had no legs.
I was just picturing no feet. I don't know why.
No legs. No legs at all.
Oh.
She was just a floating torso.
Okay.
With arms and a head. In a white dress.
That's a real choice.
You know?
And it boggles my mind, and I openly tell people this, that I will look at pictures of myself in former friendships or relationships or jobs, and I'll look so happy and so cute that it pisses me off, because I'm like, well, I know how that all played out, and now here's this beautiful photo of me, and I don't even want to be seen anymore, because I actually know what was going on in my head, and I unconsciously just made myself look that way so everything could be perceived as being okay.
Well, it's a survival tactic, right?
Mhm.
We all do those things that help us get through that day. But it's like, when are you doing them that are a detriment to yourself? When are you actually killing your soul? When are you like really hurting yourself and looking outside of yourself to feel better? And that's where I hit my bottom like 13 years ago. It's like, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep participating in what society has put on me, what men have put on me, what
Mhm.
I have put on me, the things I have done to hurt myself, right? And to re-damage myself over and over and traumatize myself. So I just couldn't do the game anymore of what we have humanized as normal.
Well, and I think what part of the game is that they make sure to deplete our adrenaline and our serotonin by keeping us chained to
Yeah.
offices from 9 to 5, and we never see our families or our friends or people who would bring us joy, and we don't do anything that brings us joy because we're constantly just working. So then how easy is it to become addicted to those surges where it's like, I haven't felt that in weeks because I've been doing the game.
But do you agree with me? And I had this huge conversation with my husband, who's in recovery as well, 33
Mhm.
years he has. And it's like, do we even know what joy is anymore?
You know?
That's my question. That's what I've been searching this last year. Like, what is actually joy? Because for so long, joy looked like a high, getting
Yeah.
a new purse, buying a new house, getting a new car, going on a vacation. I'm like, anybody can have joy going on a beautiful location. Like, but do you have joy in everyday life where nothing is happening outside of you and
Mhm.
you are actually intimate and connecting with another human being on this planet, whoever it is, or joy within yourself? I don't think a lot of people know what actual joy is. And I think that's what's also destroying our world, like that
Well,
honest joy.
as you know, I've been without AC for 3 weeks, so this
Oh
is
my
a
God.
tough question for me to answer today. But I think I have an
But joy
example.
and comfort are different.
Right.
Comfort is what others like.
But how hard is it to be joyful when you are constantly uncomfortable?
No, and
Like,
that's where I get it. If you see those people in situations where
mhm.
life is so hard, how do you find joy? But they do find joy.
They do.
Mhm.
I have come to like equate joy with
Mhm.
ease. Like this past Sunday or this past weekend, I was at a gaming convention with my family. But I would say that the moment that I was truly the most joyful was I got to meet a friend who had flown in from Utah to go to the con. And
Mhm.
they had invited me to like a TikTok creator get together. Like all of these Dungeons and Dragon TikTokers were going to meet at a bar. And it was just easy. I'm getting to know people. They're getting to know me. We are all genuinely interested in one another.
Mhm.
Yes, there was a D&D streamer who, in my eyes, is famous. I don't know if she's famous to anyone else. I did stare at the back of her head, and that did also bring me joy because I was like, I'm in the same bar as her. And
Oh my God.
like, I'm just going to like take a moment and just take in her energy and carry that with me forever. But it was one of those things where no one had an agenda. And I think so often, especially creators,
Yeah.
we fall into this thing where it's like, I mean, my friend Annie one time said, she's like, I'll fully admit it. Like, I'm a content whore. And I'm like, hey, me too. Like, if it's going to look good and our livelihood or our jobs are going to like be buffeted by that, then
Mhm.
I'm a content whore too. But we all just like, I just told her, I was like, I want a friend selfie. Like, I want to walk away from this weekend knowing that like I got to meet my friend in person and now we have a photo to commemorate it. And it's like feeling happy in the moment with all of the agenda of the society around us stripped away from it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. 100%.
But it's hard to get there.
It is hard to get there. And I think when you are so in that bubble and wanting, to succeed, to drive, to
Mhm.
look a certain way, to be one of, right? It's so hard to go the other way and just be like, I mean, I don't want to take a picture. Like if I'm in pure joy, I actually don't want to take a picture.
No, I
I don't want to document it. I don't want to put it on social media. Like I don't want to do those things because it's mine. And when I put it out there, it feels like it doesn't belong to me and there is an agenda, but I get it. Yeah. No. It's hard.
My sister made a good point. We were watching the costume parade for all the cosplayers, and this guy had like wedged himself like right in front of her and was filming the whole thing. And she goes, what the hell is the point? Like, are you really going to sit at home and watch strangers walk by in their costumes, like to relive it or whatever? And I was like, I have gotten so much better about that because I also started to get pissed about watching concerts through other people's phone screens. Yeah. So I'll take my 3 photos of Garth Brooks to be all like, see, and now you'll have a memory every year come up to be like, you got to see Garth Brooks. Good for you, girl. But then I'm done. Then I put it away. It's like, I got my 2 or 3 photos, maybe a video of my favorite song. And then it's like, just be there.
Mm-hmm. And that's what my husband and I lean into. Like we actually don't post a lot about each other or videos of our son. I put up some pictures and stuff, but mostly it's just like the book or acting stuff. But I'm really trying to like be in the moment and not be videoing it or making there's a document of it. So somebody sees that I was doing something in my life. Like, so I agree. And that took a while because for I think like 5 years I was doing it. And then I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It's so disconnected from the value system that I want to carry in this lifetime.
Well, and I think what's hard too is there's always this narrative in my head that even if you're not putting out and showing off, people are just going to read it in your face like, she's just doing that for the hot girl shit moment of it all. And it's like, well, I was doing it because I like Garth Brooks. And I can't help it that I'm also a hot girl. So I can't help it that this qualifies as hot girl shit. It's not my fault.
Well, let them think what they want. Right. That I don't care. Like, do it for you if you enjoy doing it. But if you are doing it in an inauthentic way to like prove you are worthy, that's where I think for me it's a problem.
And I think we conflate that with how we really just will choose to show love. My mom and I fall into this category a lot where if we go the extra mile to say hello to someone or like we make sure to hone in onto someone and really take the time to like have a conversation with them, but just in the crowded room or whatever, the narrative that we have been painted with is like, oh, you know, they showed up and now they have to like be the belle of the ball or whatever. And it's like, I was just talking to my aunt. I was just checking in with her. But it's such an ugly perception that we all carry with us that like, well, everyone's fronting. Like nothing is genuine.
Yeah, that I don't think is right either. That we can have nothing is genuine. But I do believe like that is what society is expecting now, especially in Hollywood, you know, and I write about it a lot, like the Compare and Despair in chapter 7 that I talk about. And like what we have these unrealistic expectations on ourselves and others, then make it feel disingenuine because most of the time it is disingenuine. So it's like this weird balance of like, do you take people in their authentic self or do you like have those judgmental thoughts?
Yeah. So I just had a conversation for the podcast with a man named John Lee Brody, and he was likening Hollywood to high school. He goes, unfortunately, you just end up in all of these pitfalls. Whether or not your mindset is still in high school, you can't control if the person who's in charge of the room is always in a either like Hollywood mindset or an out to get someone mindset. There's just so much out there that we can't control how other people are conditioned.
No. I mean, no, you can't control and how anybody's conditioned. I can't control my son, my 4-year-old son. I can't control him. I can't control my husband or anybody else. I have to just show up as my authentic self, be open and have my boundaries, being open and having boundaries. and then just see what arrives, see how they arrive, and then see the red flags, the green flags, and all that stuff with friends, with family members, all of it.
All of it.
Strangers, Hollywood producers, Hollywood directors.
And then just like, and I think what ends up happening too is we're conditioned to be like, we'll walk away and then think, was that enough? And I think we should be walking away from situations and going, damn, I did it. And it was enough in my head.
Well, whatever it is what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like we always think, oh, I didn't do enough, or that wasn't enough, or it didn't turn out this way. And it's like, no, it actually is exactly the way it is supposed to be. And when we accept that, we can walk away in a sense where it's like it's in God's hands, or the universe's hands, or whatever you want to call it.
Yep. I did it. I collected that energy and I threw it right back out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when you're in the very beginning of kind of discovering this about yourself and in recovery, what does recovery look like?
Well, it's hard. I mean, recovery of sex and love addiction, and I'm not going to say like it's harder than any chemical addiction. It's just usually underneath a chemical addiction of drugs and alcohol, there's a relationship problem. So they really call SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, the PhD of all the 12-step programs, because you take away the drugs and alcohol, there's like a codependency or an Al-Anon issue. And then you take away that and you see, oh God, it's all relationships. It's tied to my sexuality, my intimacy, my self-love. And that's what Sex and Love Acts is. It's about finding yourself to then have relationships with other people. But we are so depleted, usually as addicts, with no relations of self. So it's like developing that. So when you first go into recovery of sex and love addiction, it's like you're dying.
Yeah.
Your whole sense of self is dying. Your identity is dying. The relationships in your life are dying because most of them are probably toxic and enmeshing and codependent and all of that. So, you know, for me, and I write about it in chapter 3, my first 9 months of my recovery, I cried every day. I had to get rid of any guy friends, any sexual acting out, whether it even be masturbation or anything like that. Touch, anything. I had to get rid of everything. Really just go into myself, do therapy twice a week, do 12-step meetings, step work. And I cried every day. I'm not kidding. Like I'm talking like not just like a little tears. I'm having a hard day. It's like ugly cry where you're like, like from your soul. And I woke up one morning after 9 months and it was just like, all that trauma that happened to me and I did to other people and all that stuff that I've done over the years to fill this addiction, to fill this attention, validation, control, power over other people, because inside I felt so powerless and empty and depleted.
Yeah. Well, because what do you do when you're in withdrawal for attention from other people? Like that, there's not a pill for that. There's not like a patch where it's like, nicotine withdrawal is a real bitch. Have some gum. Like, there's nothing.
No, there's nothing. There's no like methadone clinics. You know, there's no like, and here's the thing with this addiction, then you have to go back and go, okay, how do I have healthy relationships? How do I show up sexuality? What is my sexuality? How do I show love? Do I go for the unavailable? Am I looking for this fantasy? Do I go into fantasy in my head while with somebody else? And so you walk outside in this world and just imagine if you were addicted to alcohol. There's like vodka bottles everywhere and you have to go and interact with those vodka bottles, or snorts of coke or heroin. Like you have to imagine it like that. So when I go out into the world, my addiction is people. It's attention, validation, love, like fill me, give me your energy, make me feel worthy, right? When you take that away and you go through an abstinence period, it's called a withdrawal period, like I said, that you then have to bring it back. Yeah. I can't stay a hermit in my house. Like I have to go to the grocery store and know how to interact properly with other people. So what that would look like, I would go to like restaurants and not be able to make eye contact with the waiter because I was always giving off that energy of flirt with me, like, like just because society taught me that as a woman. And so it was really brutal, like the bringing it back in a healthy way, like having your boundaries, when you actually want to say no and not maybe or yes, like no with a period, not no, but
Yeah.
it was really, really, really hard. And I was in a relationship. I was living with my boyfriend at the time
Oh my
on
goodness.
top of it. So we didn't have sex for the first year of my recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really hard, if you can imagine.
No, and then I'm also thinking about grappling with that as a woman where almost my sexuality offers me some safety within the world, because then I can craft what I want to get out of my day or that relationship, because I've been conditioned to know how to weaponize my sexuality.
It's that power and control.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the main thing was for me is like, if I can feel some kind of power and control over you, I then feel worthy. I then feel good enough. I feel good in my skin. It's what we wear. It's how we do our makeup. It's how we walk. It's how we communicate with other people. All those things we use as weapons
Mhm.
to get what we want in this world.
And then to just have to like strip that all away.
Yep.
Oh.
It's brutal. I mean, it's just like me telling a woman, which I say, can you not go out and flirt today? Can you not go out and wear heels or red lipstick and be okay? If I took away all your looks and took away the beautiful, cool things you say or the cool girl you act like, if I took that all away, would you be okay? And 99% of the time, the people I work with are like, no, I cannot do that. I mean, just for me, my therapist is like, can you not wear eyeliner? And I was like, no. She's like, it's like your war paint. And I said, yeah, I don't want people to really see me. Like,
right.
I don't want, and it took me the longest time to come into her office, like 8 years to not wear eyeliner.
Well, and then you're trying to discover yourself, right? And so much of how we discover ourselves or learn about ourselves is how we present ourselves to the world too. Yep. So one of the like huge ways that I express myself when I know it's not going to sweat right off into this humid home is eyeshadow. Like I love matching eyeshadow to my outfit and being like, I get to color on my face today. But if that's also an invitation to a trigger, then it's like, well, how do I get to express myself without also walking myself into a trap? Like that's gotta be such a mind boggle.
Yeah, because then so I didn't wear the eyeliner, right, to her, and I felt completely naked and just like, you can really see me. And then I realized, I cannot wear and it took years. Like I cannot wear eyeliner and do it for me, and I can wear eyeliner and do it for me. I can wear heels, but I do it for me. So it's like, do you do it for you? Or do you do it for this fantasy, this vision, what people expect of you, what society puts on you, all of that stuff, or your addiction, or to attract what you want to attract? Then that's where you have to do the work to take it away. You take it away and see how you feel, what comes up for you, go through that process of whatever healing or feelings come up that you haven't dealt with. And then you bring it back in a way where it's healthy, where you're not using it as a weapon or a survival tactic in this world. And that's the difference. But you have to take it away first. That's the hard part. People don't want to take it away. And they're like, okay, I look like this, I dress sexy like this, but I do it for me. I know I do it for me. This is how I feel good about myself. And it's like, okay, but if you didn't dress like that for a period of time, how would you actually feel about yourself?
Right. And how would you know if you've made this the norm and you've never gone without, and you've always made sure to have your best face on whenever you go out? Because I remember how we were raised. Like I would come downstairs and my mom would look at me and go,
"You're gonna wear that?"
Why would you go to the restaurant in that t-shirt? And I'd be like, well, it's just like a band t-shirt I got at college. And she'd be like, no, go upstairs, put on something nice, we are going out.
I know. And it's like, where do you just allow your kid to be who they are and not have that expectation on them, or they had to be a certain way?
Or when do you draw the line between like, yes, present yourself a certain way if you're going out or whatever that aligns to the occasion, but how do you also disclose to your kid that it doesn't really matter because people might not even be fucking looking at you? And then that also shouldn't be an anxiety point with you.
Totally. So it's like you're damned if you do sometimes and you're damned if you don't.
But yeah, just like stripping all of that away and almost the thing that you've built your identity around and then going, well, fuck. Do I like scary movies or do I like that someone will hold my hand during the scary movie? Like,
and you have to strip it all away first. That's the part people don't want to do. That you have to strip it all away and see, is this really me or is this what society has taught me to be?
It's like that scene in Runaway Bride where he asks her what
kind of eggs.
Yeah. And then she has to try all of the eggs. And I'm like, I would hate to eat a table full of eggs.
I love eggs, so I would love that. But my husband would hate it too. He'd be like,
But was there anything, so when you got to kind of rebuild yourself after you had stripped it all away, was there anything that surprised you that you liked about yourself or didn't like anymore?
Oh my God, there were so many things that I had to let go of, like the facade, you know, that I'm a very private person. I have always said, like, I don't like people to know me. I'm a very private person. And then now I have a podcast and wrote a book, you know, based on my life and like do all these interviews. And it's like, no, I actually have been craving connection for the longest time, an authentic, raw connection and a real connection, that I was just terrified that people would not like me or abandon me. And I think because now I have so much self-love that you can like me or dislike me and have your judgment, and that's okay. And it took me the longest time, but then it was things like what was one of the things oh my God, I just had it in my head and I forgot, but there was something that I was like, oh, I thought I liked that and I don't like it, but I'll remember it again in a minute. It will pop back in my head. That
genuine raw connection is also something that I feel it's one of those weird things where we live in the year 2022. So many people are connecting via the computer.
Yeah.
And then you're making these connections via the computer. It's kind of like how guys will tell you whatever the fuck they want on a dating app because they have the phone to hide behind.
Yeah.
So you kind of also break down those walls between the people that you know from far away. But I've been looking at people close to me and just like sitting in rooms with people and being like, why do I feel so lonely? Like, it's that coming out of when you're forming real, genuine connections, and then you have to look at the other connections that you have built and go, no one really asks anything real about me during the course of my day.
Well, I think it's just a catch-22 though, because I agree. You know, I've gotten really intimate and raw with people I've met online or interviews and just friends, but it's just like, but something else happens to us when we're in person with people and we're almost scared to get that authentic and raw. So there's still a barrier. So you don't really feel full intimacy until you're in front of another human being. I believe this is just my belief. You can take it or leave it, but that's my truth is like, me and you sitting in front of each other right now, I would be feeling so much more anxiety us in person.
No, I get
saying
that.
all these things because you're even seeing me more and we're in each other's energy and space. So I still believe people are trying to learn how to be that authentic and real in a person. And is the computer, is the internet helping us connect in a different level? Yes. But is it still real intimacy? I believe not. But I did think of the thing I meant to tell you.
Go for it.
That after all my work, like I didn't want to do sex scenes anymore in my work. Like I did this sex scene in the middle of my recovery. I'm still in recovery. I still go to 12-step and Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. I do all those things, but after the first year, I started working as an actor again because I was willing to give up my career because my therapist is like, you pick the worst career for your addiction. You're like attention, validation, outside sexuality, all of that. Actress is the worst career, rejection, all of it. And so when I got done and I went and did this movie, I'm not going to say where, it was across the country and I had a sex scene and I started having a panic attack in my trailer. And I called my boyfriend, who's my husband. We've been together for 17 years. And I said, I don't want to do these scenes anymore. Like, I just don't want to. And he's like, you don't have to. And I had to do that scene because I signed a contract and I couldn't get out of it. I called my lawyer. But ever since then, I haven't done any of those scenes. And that's like, I just don't want to do that anymore. So that was one thing.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
And that you, again, like, you muscled through the one and you were like, okay, I can rationalize that I have to do this one, but this one will be my last one.
Yeah.
Because I think even with all of the, like, what do they call them? Like intimacy coaches, where now they have like babysitters on sets for intimate scenes. Like, you could have 22 people staring at me, but I'm still getting touched intimately. I'm still like acting out things that my brain knows that I enjoy. And all of it, it's got to be really hard to just like be like, I can't block all of that out. I don't want to be doing it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's all based in fantasy, and you do have to go into your mind, whether it's a closed set or not, which majority of the time are closed sets. I've never had a bad experience in any of the sex scenes that I've done, you know, having an intimacy coordinator. I'm glad they're here now, but I personally haven't had a bad situation where I felt disrespected. It's just, I thought in that moment, I don't even own my sexuality, and that part of me to then go and put it on screen felt so disingenuous and not connected to me. And I didn't want to give it away anymore when it was mine. Does that make sense?
That does. It makes a lot of sense. The fantasy part of it all.
Yes.
So what is your stance on fantasy now? Because we have such a romanticized version of that word where it's like date for, and people are like, tell me your wild one. Like, what's the one that you think will scare off everybody?
You know, I really cannot go into fantasy. That to me is like a shot of heroin. Like, I am not allowed to have unrealistic expectations what things should look like. You know, I really have to stay in the present, because that is like me shooting heroin. Fantasy, it's my thinking that's sick, right? It's not the drinking, it's the thinking is what we say, but my drinking is people. But I can't go into fantasy. I can't hear about, you know, those things. Like if I'm hanging out with the girlfriends and stuff, I don't really want to hear about your sexual acting out or what you're, it's not healthy for me. So I have to keep those boundaries and bottom lines really, really close to my chest. And I have to just, you know, be like, okay, here, this is what I can and cannot say. But I really try not to go into fantasy about anything at all.
That makes a lot of sense. And
which sucks, just so you know. Because reality ain't fun. Like if you find yourself like, oh, daydreaming, oh, this is going to happen, or even negative fantasy, like, oh, and then this is going to happen, and this is right. Like we all try to like figure it out before we worry it, or we like, oh, this can like, what if this, and if I get this and blah, blah, blah. But for me, that's a drug. It's literally, it will take me to my knees, because reality is so hard to stay present. And social media helps. It really does that fantasy. So I can't scroll on social media. I can't look at anybody else's stories or anything like that, because I'll go into fantasy. No, I keep cutting you off. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Because that's how I disassociate. I take what's going on around me, and then I rewrite it in my head and be like, would this make it better or worse? Like, if I just add this one element into it, is now what's going on better or is it worse? And like, I played that game all day long.
Yeah. And that's fantasy. And people do it all the time. And it's like so dangerous, because we're not where we actually are. So every time I enter a room, I have to say to myself, be in this room. You're nowhere else. Don't go thinking about what happened 2 minutes ago, or what's going to happen, or what you want to happen, or all that stuff. And people are like, but don't you have goals? Don't you want to do more things? And it's like, yes, you can still have goals and like visions, but you have to stay in reality 24/7. And it's exhausting.
Over the weekend while I was with my family, I forget that sometimes my face will act out what I'm thinking through. And my dad became very hyper focused on me because he caught one of my facial expressions, and I did like a side eye, and no one was talking. Like, it was an insanity moment where it's like, Natalie just reacted and we were all just eating our ice cream. Like, and he looked at me and he's like, what's wrong? And I went, what? He goes, what's wrong? And I go, nothing's wrong. I was just thinking something through in my head. Oh my gosh, I live alone. I can just like literally physically act things out. But I'm in an ice cream parlor right now.
Yeah. So think about that. And you are doing it all the time, not living in reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it gets really bad for me.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the secret keeping and why secrets have become such a huge part of your content and creating around that idea.
Well, I believe and I see that secrets keep us sick, whether it be, little secrets or big secrets. It's a way for me to be disconnected from people around me. And when I carry those secrets, there's so much stigma and shame. For example, I was writing an article for HuffPost coming out for the first time as a sex and love addict in Hollywood in recovery as a woman. And when that article came out at 9 a.m. that morning, I kid you not, I almost had a panic attack. I was like, oh my God. Like, even though I've had like over 10 years of recovery in sex and love addiction, right? It's like not like something new, but I was like, oh my God, I just ruined my career. No one's going to hire me. They're going to think, oh, she's just a whore, blah, 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 all those things, right? And then an hour went by, nothing happened. 2 hours went by, nothing happened. And it was like, oh my God, humble yourself. Nobody cares, lady. Like, get over yourself. Nobody cares. But what did happen is that last bit of shame I was carrying around that I didn't know I still had, and stigma, and just like kind of being still disconnected, like in my slaw world, in recovery, and helping, like speaking all over the world, but in my slaw world and then my Hollywood world. And for the first time, those two parts of me were completely one. And that last bit of shame just left. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was still carrying that around. Yeah. And then weeks, people were reaching out and saying, oh my God, me too, me too. So I woke up one morning after that and I said, Secret Life Podcast, tell me your secret and I'll tell you mine. Because every time we release a secret, that shame and stigma goes away. Yeah. It connects us, and connection is the number one thing that gets anybody out of addiction is connection. It's not sobriety, it's connection. So every time I connect to someone like you or one of my guests or helping a listener, I am more sober. I am out of my addiction of like being singular and selfish and self-seeking and narcissistic and all those things. So that just came a huge thing. So every episode I try to reveal something about myself. So I'm connecting with my guests and listeners.
I'm truly terrible at secrets. I tried to keep the show a secret from my family. It lasted maybe 10 episodes. The minute that I was in front of them, part of the problem was I think secrets rob you of getting to live your joy authentically. So I was so happy that the show was being received well and doing well, and that I was actually good at this. And then to not be able to just be like, I'm good at a thing was, I mean, I would just sit there and I'd be like, they don't even know that I'm good at a thing. Like, because you're always craving, like, again, recovering codependent, I'm like, look at these people who raised me. They don't even know that I'm good at a thing. And they're also the reason I'm codependent. What if I told them that I was good at a thing? And I couldn't do it. And I've had, quote unquote, a secret relationship that everyone knew about. He just didn't know that everyone knew. I was like, no, it's a secret. I did a really good job. It's still so passionate and secret. We're sneaking around. Don't worry. Everyone knew.
And yeah, that's the thing. It's like, yes, I get it. Like some people can't show a secret, but then they overshare. So it's like, which one is, both of them are not great, like to have secrets and then to overshare. So it's like finding that balance of where you're not carrying around, because oversharing is another way to force false intimacy.
That is also true. And that really plays into, so, when you're kind of doing well with recovery, so then you start overcorrecting everywhere that you're at.
Yep.
The moment that I feel kind of like an instant connection, and then that instant connection doesn't start to wane, I'm like, what's wrong with that person? Are they a codependent too? Are we both just trauma bonding? Is this sick? And then I have to sit in front of my therapist and be like, remember how I met a lovely person who seems to genuinely care about me? And they're like, yeah. I go, I refuse to believe that they genuinely care about me. Can we walk through it? And she's like, yes, let's just step by step.
Yeah, I mean, you do overcorrect, and then are we trauma bonding? Are we doing all those things? And you have to see, like, where are you even forcing intimacy? Where are you trying to like latch on to the person so you feel connected? Are they healthy? There's all those tools that you have to use, and then realize, like, okay, am I wanting this person to give me my worth? Are they too close to me? Am I scared of intimacy still? All those things come up. So it's like when you're dealing with people as your addiction, it's 1,000 times harder, I believe, than if it's a substance. That's just, listen, the substance kills you quicker, but I know tons of people that are in jail, murdered, and suicide over relationships. Like, watch a Dateline. Everything's a love triangle. People are not authentic with their love lives. And it's one of the love is one of the number one things that murders people. Like, so this is just as deadly as drugs and alcohol. It kills you in a different way.
Yeah. Saying no to the wrong person or saying yes a few times and then saying no. People can't handle boundaries.
No, boundaries are the hardest thing. And that's the thing, to this day, most important is the boundary. I always believe that boundaries were like boring, and it's like, I'm going to be in this little box. And really it creates where there's freedom. There's freedom in boundaries.
I one time set a boundary with someone, and that person told me, well, if that's how you believe that friendships should be going, it's very clear that you want to be lonely and that you actually don't want to see friends as your family like I do. And I'm like, well, number one, why would I want more toxic family members? Number two. But it made me really go like, oh, that means that this boundary isn't enough. I now have to build 3 more because of your reaction.
Yeah. It's fun, right? It's a good time setting boundaries and people not wanting to respect them. It's a good time.
Yeah. That's when you truly learn who is actually in your life, is when you tell them no. I always say that. I'm like,
no with a period.
Yeah.
No with a period.
I go, you don't really know who someone is until you deny them something, especially if you deny them something that they thought that they like honestly woke up every day deserving.
Yeah, entitled to, right? They felt entitled to, or they were already getting, and then you decide, hey, this is actually not working for me anymore. Yeah. People always like, how do I set a boundary with someone I've known forever? And I'm like, you just say, this is not working for me anymore. And I didn't realize it was affecting me like this. And moving forward, I would really like for us to keep this boundary between us. And then see how much fun that is.
I had a friend compliment my texting style, because if you complain about something twice, instead of giving you solutions or like an over-amounting flood of care, I'll do that the first time. Instead, I'll just go, oh, that sounds really hard. And she goes, you always have like a no. She's like, it's not that it's no nonsense or no caring. It's just like void of it. Like, it's just an even-keeled response. I go, that's not for the other person. That's for me. I can't go into your spiral every day, especially if it's it. Right. And if it's a daily spiral, I'm like, oh, there's something that's keeping you from fixing this. So I can't be in that roller coaster.
Good for you. I love that. I love that. That's great. Good job.
33 years, I've finally learned how to text people that isn't just baiting them into giving me more tea. My best friend sometimes is like, I get pissed off that you have boundaries now, because now like the gossip isn't ever as good. And I'm like, it happens. I can't know everyone's gossip, because once you know, you can't know the hurt that the people.
Well, it's taking away your energy. It is every time you gossip with someone, it's another form of false intimacy. I teach people that, like, when you gossip, you and the other person are having false intimacy, and it takes away your energy from yourself. So you take that away, and no gossiping. People don't know what to do with that, because that's how they attach to you.
Yeah. I will only stir the shit if I was a person in the room who was affected. And then I will text you and be like, ugh, I got some shit to process if you would like to jump on that ride. And if you're a gossip hunter, you can be like, yes, what did those fuckers do to you yesterday? And I'm like, here it is.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah. This has been a lovely conversation. We have 2 traditions on To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. We gift the listeners like a life lesson, either from the conversation or from the things that we talked about that we have to experience. And then we offer the entire universe a manifestation or a hope that we would like for something to be fixed in our society related to what we've dealt with.
Whew, that's a tall order. Okay.
When people look at me, I go, I realize that in 2022, I decided that we would voice the things that we want to have changed. And every day there's 10 more things that we need fixed. Yeah. I realize that that's a hard way to end a show. And I'm just so sorry, everyone who signs up to be on this podcast. I'm just so sorry.
So the life lesson now? Okay. The life lesson I would say is there is power in no with a period. That when you get to set those things for yourself, you get to have beautiful experiences with other people and you don't have drama in your life anymore. And that is what I have to tell you. It took me 12 and a half years of recovery to see that a life without drama is so fulfilling and beautiful.
Yeah. I think mine would be if you're still chasing it, it's because you're not getting it from around you. So that's where you have to start. If you are still, like I'm doing every time I'm talking to someone, vocalizing to someone that like, I don't know, it's just like I would like to wake up and have genuine connection with the people who are an arm's length away from me, it's because you're not getting it.
Amen.
Manifest something that you hope that we receive in the future.
Oh my God. I hope we receive in the future everybody having a sense of self and loving themselves enough to stop reaching outside of themselves for their self-worth. If everybody could have that, that would just be a beautiful existence.
100%. And mine's really quick. I would like to hope that everyone knows that every step that you take to building the life that you want and the person that you want to be is valid. So don't go to bed wishing that you could have done more.
Love it. Good job.
Make sure that the tolerators know where they can connect with you.
Oh, yes. Please, if you have any questions about Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, my book, Secret Life of a Hollywood Sex and Love Addict, you can reach me at Instagram at the Brianne Davis. You can go to secretlifenovel.com. All my articles, book links are there, or listen to Secret Life Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, or TikTok at @Brianne Davis. Thank you.
And then everyone, you know what to do. Like and subscribe at Men I've Tolerated Pod on Instagram. It has the links for everything else that you could do to support the show. And remember, tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything you're tolerating, including a society that makes you feel like all of your triggers should just be normal parts of your day. Smiles are for joy. Hi, everyone. Thank you for checking out this week's episode. I wanted to jump on and offer a small reminder of the ways that you can connect with us. The first way is our socials. So we are Men I've Tolerated Pod on Instagram and Natalie K124 on TikTok, my personal Instagram. And you can find us on YouTube and Pinterest under To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. The second way is by becoming a Patreon member. We are well on our way to our 25 member Patreon, where we are going to unlock bonus perks to being a patron member. Shout out to all of our existing patrons. As an independently ran and funded podcast, your support means everything. Another way that you can connect with us is making sure to subscribe and leave comments wherever you can so we can start reading reviews on each podcast episode. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to check out the merch store, and we will see you next week.